Today, I wasn't very social in college. I didn't get good grades, wasn't a frat, didn't have a girlfriend, and wasn't involved in much. I wasn't a very happy kid, but I'm not complaining. In my late 30s, I found a loyal girl who never stopped fighting for me. Now, we live together with 2 cats, Blue and Raz, and I'm planning to propose soon. Back in college, frat parties were off the table for me, but I still wanted to have fun. My friends, Bryson and Ian, were in the same boat. We spent most weekends killing time in Bryson's dorm. That being said, we took any chance we got when it came to parties. Most of the ones we attended were off campus, unaffiliated with frats or the school. One time, we even drove over an hour just to get to party. Safe to say, we were pretty desperate. One Friday afternoon, Ian texted the group chat saying the girl he was talking to knew about a party nearby. I tend to attract the strangest girls, he joked. Bryson teased him about it being some kind of death metal emo anime party, which, honestly, I kind of agreed with, but Ian was adamant it would be a normal party. And since we had nothing better to do, we went along. Bryson convinced his brother, Chris, to be our designated driver. Chris didn't drink anyway, so he was up for it. On the way there, Ian started complaining about the girl, Callista. She hadn't answered him in hours. Given the kind of guy Ian was, this wasn't too surprising. He was pretty upset and even reconsidered going, which felt like an overreaction. We were already 30 minutes in, so turning back was an option. We told him to suck it up and enjoy the night. Then he noticed Cullis's profile had disappeared from his phone altogether. We broke it to him. He had been blocked. Most likely, she went to party with someone else. Ian pouted for the rest of the ride. When we got there, we knew we made the right choice. The house was massive compared to the rest on the block. Ian didn't want to go in right away, saying he needed a buzz first. We didn't mind, so Chris parked a little further down, and we pre-gamed outside the car. As we drank, we watched people pouring into the house. It looked like a pretty wild party. Once Ian was satisfied with his buzz, we headed inside. The moment we stepped in, something felt off. The lights were all on, no ambient lighting, just the harsh overheads. Most people were dressed nicely, nothing like the usual rowdy college party scene. It looked more like a fancy dinner party. The music was bizarre, too. No hip-hop or trap, just an eerie instrumental sound. Not bad, just odd. My friends and I exchanged glances, trying to make sense of it. Ian had no answers either. We wandered around, grabbing drinks along the way. But soon, I started noticing people looking at me, then immediately looking away. It was so obvious that I even checked if there was something on my face. I figured it was just because of how we were dressed. Despite the weird atmosphere, we were having a good time. Well, except Chris. He was bored and went to smoke in his car. A few minutes later, a group of girls approached us. We weren't exactly the confident type, so getting approached was a first. They flirted with us immediately, which felt unusual. One of them joked about an entrance fee, holding up a bottle of tequila. When we realized they were serious, we didn't argue, we took the shots. After that, the 6 of us stuck together, drinking, talking, and dancing. Things were going well. That's when I noticed something odd. Tina, the girl I was with, had a strange green mark on her neck. It was a thin, solid line, like it had been drawn in Sharpie. It looked unnatural. I debated asking her about it, but decided against it, not wanting to be rude. Once I noticed it, though I couldn't unsee it. Then Bryson and his girl wandered upstairs. Soon after, Ian and his girl followed. I was nervous to make a move, so I told Tina I needed to use the bathroom and would be right back. The only bathroom I found was occupied, so I waited outside the door. Eventually, a tall, older-looking guy in a white button-down and linen pants stepped out. As I rushed in, he bumped into me. I turned around, expecting an apology, but he just stood there, staring. It was the strangest thing, his blank expression, sizing me up. Just as I was about to say something, I noticed it. The same green mark on his neck, identical to Tina's. Against my better judgment, I asked him what his problem was. He smirked, shook his head, and asked, "Who invited you?" I blurted out Callista's name. He chuckled, like he knew exactly who I was talking about, then looked me dead in the eye, his smile gone. In a low voice, he repeated, "Do you see Callista here?" I had no response. Instead, I slammed the door in his face, my mind racing. What the hell was going on? When I finally left the bathroom, I looked for him, but he was gone. As I walked through the house, more people stared at me like I didn't belong. But at that point, I didn't care. I was determined to find my friends and drag them out of there. As I wandered around the party, I couldn't shake the image of that strange green mark. My curiosity got the best of me, and I started scanning people's necks, searching for anything similar. To my horror, I spotted 2 more people with the same eerie green lines. They were identical in color, length, and thickness. It was unsettling. I kept looking for the guy I had first noticed, all while discreetly checking the necks of other partygoers. Most were unmarked, but every now and then I'd catch another glimpse of those unnatural green lines. A growing sense of unease took hold of me. I needed to get out of there, and I needed my friends to come with me. As I made my way to the stairs, relief washed over me when I saw Bryson and Ian coming down. I pulled them aside into an empty hallway, desperate to explain what I had seen. I told them about the marks and insisted that we had to leave immediately. They burst into laughter. Bryson brushed it off, saying I was just drunk and jealous because they had hooked up and I hadn't. I ignored the comment and asked where the girls had gone. Bryson told me she had instructed him to meet her upstairs in 20 minutes. Ian said his girl had told him the exact same thing. They weren't listening. Caught up in their excitement, they refused to believe me. Frustrated, I told them to follow me so I could prove people had those strange marks. But they wouldn't budge. Just as I was about to give up, Ian turned his head slightly. My stomach dropped. A thin red line had appeared on his neck. This time, not green, but red. I practically screamed, which finally made him take me seriously. I spun to check Bryson's neck, and sure enough, there was a red mark on his too. Ian rolled his eyes, saying it was probably just a makeup stain, but Bryson was starting to believe me. I didn't care to argue anymore. I just wanted out. I told them we were leaving, and Bryson immediately turned to follow. Ian hesitated, still wanted to meet up with the girl. Then, out of nowhere, a random guy walked past us. He didn't speak, but he slowed down just enough to stare at each of us individually. My breath hitched when I noticed a green line on his neck. That was it. Bryson and I bolted for the door, Ian close behind. As we left, it felt like every single person at the party was watching us, but no one tried to stop us. That only made it worse. We ran to Chris's car and barely had time to catch our breath before both Ian and Bryson's phones started buzzing nonstop. The girls were texting them, demanding to know why they had left. But how did they even know? They weren't anywhere near us when we ran out. That was the final straw. My friends blocked their numbers. Everyone I tell this story to has their own wild theory about what really happened that night. As for me, I don't know what to think. And honestly, I don't want to know what would have happened if that guy hadn't tipped me off. I attend Temple University and live in a small apartment near campus. It's on the 2nd floor of an older building, which means I can hear pretty much everything going on outside. A few days after breakup, I started noticing strange noises at night. Not the usual city sounds, but something different. Footsteps. Quiet shuffling, like someone was just outside my window. At first, I brushed it off as my imagination playing tricks on me. But as the nights passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Eventually, I convinced myself that it was probably my ex. The reason I wasn't panicking? Ben had always been the sweetest, most harmless guy. I mean that in a nice way. He would never do anything drastic or hurtful. I figured he was just having a hard time moving on. So, I decided to ignore it, assuming he'd eventually get bored. Besides, I had enough stress from the breakup and an upcoming group project. That project, as it turns out, became a pivotal moment in everything that followed. I was responsible for editing the final video and submitting it to our professor. I stayed up all night, making sure everything was perfect, and finally sent it off just before midnight. Relieved, I went to bed, trying to push aside all the other chaos in my life. The next day in class, we were scheduled to present the project. My professor plugged in his laptop and opened the file I had submitted. I was nervous, but also proud of our work. I had a lot of experience with Adobe products, and I knew our video was a step above the others. Then, the video started playing and my stomach dropped. It wasn't our project. Instead, a grainy video appeared on screen. Someone in a scream mask was staring directly at the camera. But they weren't just sitting there, they were talking, spewing horrible things about me, my professor, the government. Disgusting, vile things. I won't even repeat what was said. It was that disturbing. My professor let the video play a few seconds longer than he probably should have. Frozen in shock. When he finally paused it, his face was pale. I couldn't move. I had never felt so mortified in my life. My entire body locked up as I felt every single pair of eyes in the room staring at me. I knew what they were thinking. The humiliation was unbearable. After what felt like the longest moment of my life, I snapped out of it, tears welling up in my eyes. I ran out of the lecture hall before the panic attack fully took hold. I considered going straight home, but I knew disappearing would only make things worse. I had to clear my name. So I waited outside the building until class ended, then approached my professor. Desperately, I explained that I had no idea what happened. I was positive I had submitted the right file. He agreed to check and, to my relief, confirmed that 2 videos had been sent. The first one was our actual project, but a second, more recent file had replaced it. Clearing things up at the university was a nightmare, but eventually, I managed to prove my innocence. That didn't erase the humiliation, though, and it didn't change the fact that my email had been hacked. Realizing this was bigger than a prank, I changed my passwords immediately. I thought I had just been unlucky. Then things got worse. Less than a week later, I woke up to find myself logged out of Snapchat. That only happens when someone else logs in, which meant I had been hacked. Again, I don't even want to think about what they found. There was a lot on my Snapchat I don't feel comfortable talking about. I called the police and explained everything. To my surprise, Ben willingly let them question him. They confirmed he was responsible for the hacking. However, he did admit to posting my private information on some online forum after our breakup. He swore he never leaked my passwords, but they were easy to guess. And like an idiot, I had used the same password for everything. The police told me there wasn't much they could do. Ben wasn't the one who had hacked me. That's when it really hit me. Some anonymous stranger now had access to my personal life. They could blackmail me, ruin me. I changed my passwords again, but it might have been too late. Weeks passed and nothing happened. I hoped whoever had done this had lost interest, especially since the police had gotten involved. I thought it was over. I was wrong. One day, a random account added me on Snapchat. Not unusual, but when I added them back, they started sending pictures. Pictures of me. And not just any pictures. I'm sure you can guess the type. I blocked them immediately before they could threaten me, but I knew exactly what was coming next. My hands were shaking as I deleted the messages. For the next week, random accounts kept adding me. I never accepted them, too scared of what they might say, what they might demand. It was the same person. I knew it, and I had no idea what to do. There was no evidence, no way to track them. The police couldn't do anything without more information. And the worst part? They knew my address. My entire personal life was exposed to a faceless stranger. If I kept ignoring them, would they escalate? They had already lurked outside my apartment. What if they took it further? I'm praying to get bored and just stop. For any young women listening, be careful about what kind of pictures are on your phone. I don't know if this will ever end.